Hello everyone, this is Yvonne, and today I'm going to start analyzing the poem I Started Early, Took My Dog by Emily Dickinson. So overall you can see it's very organized with like 4 lines in a stanza and 6 stanzas in total. It's a lyric poem too. And you can see how like the first 2/5 stanza utilizes a very organized rhyme scheme, which is A, B, C, B. Notice the pink highlighter. However, to the last one, it's kind of interesting how it doesn't really use that rhyme scheme anymore. It's utilizing a very A, B, C, C rhyme scheme, which is kind of weird how it changes from here to here. So it's kind of important, so we like make a sign here. Then you can see the overall tone flow is kind of interesting because like it supports really well of our theme interpretation. So for the first stanza, instead of actually utilizing a lot of adjectives, it's an imagery. The describe here is kind of like objective, how like the author didn't really use much adjectives and it's like really calm and peaceful. So the tone is very normal and like calm. However, to the second stanza where like, for example, these dashes here can be like here and here is like abrupt. And also extended hempen hands. Notice the hempen and hands here, presuming me to be a mouse. So like this is kind of negative how like the author is being described or seen as a mouse, and also like here aground to the sands, upon the sands. It gives a vibe of how like the author is being stuck in these sands and how it's like negative too, because it's saying how she's being viewed and treated badly, and the limitations are like stuck in her to these sands. So here you can see like the tone is kind of like fear driven and a little bit of anger too, because for example you can see the alliteration here, extended hempen hands. So in order to say that, you need to be stronger, right? So it develops a very strong tone like as we read through. So here it can be seen as like anger, while presuming me to be a mouse. So here maybe she's like telling the readers how she's being viewed negatively, so it's kind of like a little bit of anger that's like being involved too. Then for the third and fourth stanza, you can see how like the dashes and the pause in between is kind of abrupt. Like the overall flow is way faster, like relatively faster than the previous stanzas. And also like, for example, and past my apron, and my belt, and past my bodies too. So the pause here is kind of like faster, which makes the overall flow way faster than before. So it gives a very like frightened and fear, like kind of like anxiety type, because like she's being really scared and she's being really like vulnerable and during the man's action, like the tide's actions. Then you can see made as he would eat me up, as wholly as a dew. Here he is utilizing in hyperbole, where like he would eat me up as wholly as a dew, which is like she, of course he would not eat her up, so it's like very exaggerating the actions. It describes the fear that she's feeling as if like the man is a beast or like a monster that can easily eat her up, and how she's been feeling like helpless and vulnerable because she feel like herself as a dew. So here you can see like vulnerable plus oppressed. Then you can see like for the fourth stanza, it gives a very like also fear, like the combination between, because fear like and he followed close behind. So like the pause here is a kind of abrupt too, and also like with overflow of prose also using hyperbole. So we can see how like it's kind of like a combination between fear and oppression. Like she's being overwhelmed by the power the man or the ocean is inflicting on her. Then you can see the last stanza is like very, very weird, and it changes a lot because you can see like the flow is relatively like it's the same as the first one, where it's like kind of like slow paced with like not much, despite using like and bowing with a mighty look. Despite having the pause here, it kind of feels like as we read through, it's kind of like slower, and also it's kind of like calm. So here can be interpreted as like the relax after being escaped from the power of the man. So here can be seen as the overall tone flow, which flows like very like it describes the process of from fear to like being relaxed, which gives an evidence of our theme interpretation, which can be that the narrator is a girl that's facing sexually harassment by a supposedly a man, which like she felt first of all calm and peaceful before the accident, not the accident, but like before that process. Then she felt fear and a little bit anger, and then she felt frightened, then vulnerable and oppressed, then fear and vulnerable and oppressed too. Then it's like relaxed after being escaped. So overall, you can see how like the overall flow is kind of like describing like the girls being harassed and the whole process of the mood shift. Then you can see it describing the vulnerability of women at that time, because here you can see, for example, presuming me to be a mouse aground upon the sands. Here's describing how the girl is being viewed as a mouse, which is very vulnerable and stuck to the sands. Then you can see, like, for example, as he would eat me up as a dew. So it's comparing between the man, for example, as a beast, or the girl as the dew. So like it's describing the difference between the man, like the man's right and the woman's right. How like the woman is kind of like limited and controlled by power. And also notice how like the whole poem is lacking the description of the narrator's actions and feelings. And then like it can be supported by here. It says like, and then I started to. So the narrator and the author purposely cut it up and describes how like cut up the narrator's action, and it suggests how the narrator is being limited, or she's not allowed to do anything, which also shows how limited she was and how controlled, and how she's overwhelmed by the power that the man is inflicting on her. So overall, you can see how the poem is describing like the conflict of like the girl being sexually harassed and how she's lacking the sense of power. Like she doesn't have any power or rights. And also she's being like harassed by a man. So to summarize up, this is a poem with a conflict of a girl being sexually harassed by the man, and how she's limited and controlled without any power, like she's vulnerable at that time. It also describes like the girl here can be seen as a whole group of women who's being like the victims of sexual harassment, or like how man is being arrogant and ignorance at that time, which is also a sense of gender inequality. So yep, that's it. Thank you.